Amstel Gold women's race earlier on in the day, 124 Ks from Maastricht to Bergen to Blythe finish. They have the Cowberg Crest 2 Ks from the finish, 600 meters, 8.5%. We have Annemiek van Vleuten here. SD Works have Blanca Vash starting her first race of the year with Vollering, Royce, Vanderbroek, Black, Mulman, Neve Fisher Black, probably the strongest, I would say, the strongest all-around team. Canyon Schramm have got Shabby, Royaker's Paladin to help Nivea Doma reinforcements that she didn't have last year. No Mariana Vos, she skipped it, so their leader was Lebecki, going probably hopefully over a sprint. Chapman, Brown, and Ludwig could not start for FDJ, so it was Marta Valley, clear leader today. And unlike the men's race, this opened up very, very early, right, Benji?
Yes, certainly. I think I started watching on NOS, which is like the Dutch live stream online, and that was with about 75 kilometers to go on a geo-blocked website. But nonetheless, the action was already kicking off instantly with a group that got away because Van Vleuten was apparently attacking very early on the IJzerbosweg and so forth, and the Fromberg very early on in the race, which is with 80 kilometers to go. So that is very far from the finish line, and that's not on the Kouwberg circuit yet. And that group had 4 riders from SD Works. Blanca Vash, unfortunately, not in that group, but we certainly saw strong riders that included the likes of a Vollering, the likes of a Reuser, for example, and a Molman. And it kept going on because they went towards the hardest climb on the parkour of Amstel that we mentioned in our men's preview as well, the Keutenberg. And that one lit it up completely in that group. And it was Van Vleuten once again from the bottom of the Keutenberg to the top of the Keutenberg, signature move, and she hammered that climb completely. What was left over at the top? 3 riders only, with 70 kilometers to go. And that included Van Vleuten, Nivea Doma, and Vollering. All the rest out of sight. So in the span of 10 kilometers, we went from 4v1, 4 SD Works riders versus 1 Van Vleuten, to 1v1v1, which is Van Vleuten, Nivea Doma, and Vollering. So SD Works probably wasn't too happy with the situation there. Nonetheless, Vollering kept on pacing with Van Vleuten, which was a bit of a surprise to me, because I was like, okay, they want their numeric value here. But eventually, this 3 women group got a bit of a gap, like 15 to 20 seconds on, then a peloton that formed behind, and it was Van Dijk that lit it up again behind, bridged with a few riders, Liana Lippert, Chantal Blaak, we had Henderson, and I think someone else that I just forgot to mention. No, that's it. That's a 7-women group, 30 seconds on that peloton group, and does it surprise you that Annemiek van Vleuten decides to go with 80 kilometers to go, knowing that there's so many hills towards the end as well?
No, because she's probably worried about being ganged up on at the end. She's like, let's make this one-on-one and dispense with all the domestiques. She's been worked by SD Works in multiple races. Omloop, where she still won. Strada, she didn't win. Quebec won. And then RVV, she got worked by SD Works. So I think she's like, we've got more hills here. I'm the strongest on the hills. Let's use all of them and dispense with them. But she just couldn't keep it up. And I wonder, like, she does have Sierra here. I reckon she should trust Sierra maybe a little bit more, who's a fast finisher.
I ended up asking to the DS of the team of Movistar what the reasoning was behind like sending Van Vleuten up the road that instantly from the start of those hills, and apparently it was because they were planning to do some kind of lead out, but it didn't work out, and therefore she went herself. So perhaps positioning was an issue or something like that. But in the peloton behind, we had a crash, including Sierra and Alrud, who then led to Alrud, I think, getting out of the race with, I think, a clavicle. What's it called again in English? Shoulder, not shoulder blade, but what's it called?
Collarbone. Collarbone.
Yes, collarbone. How can I forget
It is the
that?
clavicle, isn't it? Isn't that your
I think
clavicle as well?
I've got no clue. But
Hmm.
anyway, I don't care. We went onwards with the race, and that front group eventually got caught after Santesteban decided to bridge it solo, and then eventually that group got caught anyway. And we went into the 3 or 4 Kouwberg circuits towards the end. So things were looking like the Kouwberg circus was going to be deciding the race here as the peloton was formed back together. And it was kind of surprising that they came to that first Kouwberg still with the group intact at the front end. Van Vleuten didn't attack or anything. It was like she went on those earlier climbs and then decided to not attack on the ones after. And I think that gives an opportunity for others to recover. But again, that group got caught anyway, and we went to a proper peloton until some other outsiders decided to attack, like, was it Paulina Royakkers?
So Canyon SRAM, as I said, I made a point of mentioning those reinforcements earlier. Last year in these races, we saw throughout the Ardennes Classics these same riders when they were on live really strong, getting into breaks deep on the race. Paladin, Royakkers is one, Amelia, or second at Amelia, very strong hilly racer. So they're now on Canyon SRAM, and Doma, instead of having theoretically to close every move, she can send riders up the road, sit in the wheels rather, and put pressure on the other teams to chase. And it worked for a while, but I still think the positioning was a bit of an issue. But yeah, that group went, even a group Benji with Van Dijken, and they had Balsamo in the group, no longer Borghini, I don't think here. There was that group went, then it stopped. But it was really, this race was all about, like last year, Last Cowberg. It was going to
Yep.
all be about Last Cowberg. And before we get into the finale of this race, mention our show partner, Zwift. During this race, in fact, I went on the Nyokio circuit, which is actually really, really fun. Some little climbs in it as well. MVDP, you'll have seen in the Zwift, I think, aero socks, which he's been wearing for a while in this race. If you want to check out Zwift, which has been huge for my training and weight loss goals in particular, being able to knock out an hour when I was watching the race, hugely important for me. You can go to Zwift.com for a free 7-day trial through the link down below. Yeah, I think Niewiadomo's positioning wasn't perfect going into it. You called it, like, you knew exactly what was going to happen at the bottom. You knew.
Yeah, the signature move of Van Vleuten that she did on the Keutenberg and last year on the Kouwberg. And I think also in the, what was it, the World Championship, she decided to do a all-out move on. I think there was a World Championships in the Netherlands at some point in the last few years, and I remember there being a Kouwberg in there, and I remember that Van Vleuten did something on that, but I could be wrong in that. Nonetheless, we saw that she did that signature move from the bottom to the top, just after we saw also the kilometers of the race just going up. So I don't know what happened there, but suddenly we had more kilometers in the race according to the ticker on the left top. But hey, that move of Van Vleuten happened then. Did you think that was going to do damage, or were there people directly on the wheel?
Always on the wheel. I didn't think she doesn't seem to be superior enough compared to other years. Maybe the race wasn't hard enough where I'm like, she'll just run away from a 30-woman group on Carbo. I really didn't see it. She was marked by Niewiadoma. Lippert was there with a teammate, Floortje Mackay. There was Mullman, Vollering for SD Works. So, yeah, I just didn't see it. She kind of kept pulling, but no one really counted. And I thought, Benji, I was expecting Niewiadoma to launch it, and she didn't. I don't know if she was not as fast as last year. Last year's Cowberg, she was nuclear. But yeah, she didn't launch. She can't win this final sprint. And we get to the top, and it's very similar to last year. Well, yeah, sort of similar. We have SD Works this time in the front group. They have Mullman, Vollering. Vollering's the quicker sprinter. There's Van Vleuten, Martica Valley. Who else? Niewiadoma, Lippert, and immediately I'm thinking, Benji, Mullman should just pull, right? Just pull for a sprint, and Vollering's probably going to be like 40 to 50% chance to win the sprint.
Yep, I dare to say certainly. And I was expecting that to happen as she moved to the front on the left side of that group. And then suddenly she decided to like look to the right, perhaps looking at Vollering or at Van Vleuten to see if anybody's attacking there. But at that same exact time, on the left side, Marta Cavalli decides to launch it. And apparently her DS shouted in her ears, "Yes, money time. It's time to go. Give it your everything." And she went on the left side, and Momon turned her head, and she already had a gap. So a late response. And it looked to me like it wasn't all out from the start when it comes to Momon. Or do you think that she was empty?
Maybe she was tired, and that's why she wasn't pulling initially. The problem, as you said, was she was looking the wrong way. Vollering was even pointing up the road with Norman's head turned around as Cavalli went in front of her, and she lost those 5 bike lengths straight away. But yeah, AVV then didn't want to respond because she's got Vollering in the wheel, and it was just perfect for Marta Cavalli. Perfect timing. She got a huge gap. And like Mavi Garcia's here as well. Nuviadome is not going to pull Lippert. It's all on Moolman. And so you basically, even though it's a group of 7 chasing, it's really Marta Cavalli against Moolman. And Moolman's really, really tired. And she ends up soloing away, winning Amstel easily by, like, if you don't include her post up, like 6, 7, 8 second gap with the Cowberg that close to the finish. Vollering won the sprint for second. She was very, very frustrated at the finish. Lippert third, Van Vleuten fourth, Nuvidoma, Mavi Garcia, Moolman seventh, Balsamo eighth, beat in the third group, beating Lebecki and Bertid Solo. But Cavalli, Benji, our free Cavalli campaign has reached its conclusion. She was free today.
Yeah, certainly, and it's partially due to the fact that Uttrup Ludwig couldn't start this race due to the I think loads of illnesses in the FDJ camp these days with Chapman and stuff, with Brown out of his race as well. So 3 riders gone there, and Cavalli's the lone leader here. And we've said quite a few times in the past when it comes to FDJ that when Uttrup Ludwig and Cavalli are both in a smaller group that gets away, they don't tend to work well together. And I dare to say if Uttrup Ludwig is in this race, then Cavalli probably has a little chance of winning this race. That's my personal opinion on this. Do you think that I'm exaggerating?
Well, it depends. Like, would they both be like, well, one of us should lead out the other for the sprint? Would they roll attacks? Would Cavalli have been used to position her? I don't know. It all depends on. I think the answer is yeah, this was better for Cavalli, just being able to go. Incredible. She was in leg warmers and
Yeah.
arm warmers in this race. Very, 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 very odd. But it's the biggest win of her career.
Yeah.
She's won 3. This is her third win. She hasn't won since 2019, which just doesn't make sense. Like, she's 24 years old with that sort of kick, strong enough to win Amstel. How has she not won any race? Never won a World Tour race. That was a 2-2 race. It was against Paladin. Like, and then she won the World
Yeah.
Champs back in 2018 when she was like 20.
Yeah, but as a FDJ fan, I can say that I am. As I said it on the FDJ preview podcast, that this is my favorite team because they're outsiders in all the races that they start. I feel like their tactics just aren't great in most of the races they ride, and I think that's partially a factor into the fact that they don't win as much as they probably could win. And perhaps I'm exaggerating that based on a few instances, but I feel like I've said this like 15 times in the last 2 years on this podcast that something at FDJ went wrong in a group, that they didn't work together or they didn't play into having numerical value, outnumbering the others in that group. But hey, that's something. But I want to throw something different at you. I want to think about something that I came up with towards the end of this race. Sierra fell basically with 60k to go, but towards the end she was part of an attack that went pretty far into the final, then got caught again in the before the final Kauberg. Do you think that Sierra is the kind of rider where she can climb quite well and has a kick afterwards? Does Movistar have a problem where they rely too much on having Van Vleuten as solo leader and therefore impact the chances of the other riders on their team? For example, in the couple races, SD Works wants a shorter race, like an easier race. If Van Vleuten doesn't go ham, Norsgaard can probably follow. On this race, if Van Vleuten doesn't go ham, can't Sierra compete for the win at this race?
Yeah, like Sierra's very, very fast sprint. She won the bunch sprint, I think. Well, she was 4th at Flanders.
Didn't she podium Amelia? Or win Amelia? So
Uh,
the hill qualities are there certainly for Sierra. Am I right in that, or am I inventing that she did well at Emilia last season or the year before? Second at Giro dell'Emilia last year, winning Trevally Varesina. Yes, Emilia didn't have the best start list there, but this means that she can get up a decently sized climb that is relatively steep. That's 2.1 kilometers at 9.4%, the San Luca climb. So I'm saying that Movistar can win this race with Sierra if they don't go all out with Van Vleuten.
I don't really think. I mean, AVV mythical talent or mythical worker rather. I don't really think, like, tactics-wise, she's had to really think about that for the last 5 or 7 years. It's if you're that much stronger than everyone, she hasn't really had to think about it. She's mainly been like, "Okay, I have teammates, so they pull back the breakaway and then set me up to attack whenever I feel like it, and then I'll just win." Um, so, yeah, I think they do need to have some sort of second threat. If that she can't, she's like losing a lot of races where SD Works have 3 in the final, and they're just going to roll her, and then people aren't working with her. So yeah, difficult for AVV. Sierra might be the answer. Unreal Rider. In this case, I don't know. Will AV? Could you imagine AVV going on the front of that group and pacing it for Sierra to win the sprint, Benji? I would. I just can never
She'd
see that.
never do it.
She'd never do
She'd
it.
never do it. And dynamic wise in the team as well, there was this documentary that they made based on, I think, Omloop, where they were all sitting on a bed talking about what they wanted from the race. And Norsgaard is sitting in the back. And obviously, Norsgaard doesn't want a hard race in Omloop. She wants to get over the climb and so forth and do it that way. But then you have Van Vleuten that's shouting, I want the hardest race as possible. Everybody needs to hammer it. I need to fly up the Omloop on the muur of Gerardsberg in there. And like, that counters each other. Like, I genuinely think that Movistar has an issue where they could win more races if they thought about their leadership in
Oh
certain
well,
races.
Norsgaard and AVV pairing doesn't work. That
Yeah.
pairing just doesn't work.
Yeah.
And Sierra's kind of a similar rider. So, yeah, I see what you mean. Like, Norsgaard, like, good luck her getting to a final sprint if the race has been blown apart so early. But yeah, that was women's Amstel Gold Race. Huge win for Martika Valley. And yeah, I think following second 2 years in a row, this one will be much, much, much more frustrating than the one last year where Vos just toasted her. She's not doing Paris-Roubaix following, she's just doing the Ardennes Classics. And we, of course, have Women's Roubaix next Saturday. It's on its own day, which is my preference. So we'll have a preview for that, of course, as well as recaps. I'll have highlights videos. Got Brabants will recap on Wednesday. Again, we'd have Brabants bailed a few days before Paris-Roubaix, but it is what it is. I haven't seen the start list. Do you know who's doing it?
Brabantse Pijl, probably Kozenfrau again, I guess. He
Yeah.
tends to do it every year. And I think it's actually a pretty decent start list. Isn't like Evenepoel doing it as well? Because he couldn't do the other thing.
And Jala.
Nice
That's a good start
combination as
list.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pidcock.
Okay, that's really good. All right, we'll be covering that on Wednesday. Thanks as always for listening to our Amstel Gold Race recap, and we'll have a couple of days off. We'll treat ourselves, and then we'll see you then. Thanks to Zwift as always for supporting the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast. Ciao.